So, good evening, everyone. So, today is Friday, the 29th of May, almost to the last day of the month. Just 2 days left. And day after tomorrow is a full moon of Vesak, one of the very important days in the Buddhist calendar. So, day after tomorrow is the full moon of Vesak, which is an important day in the Buddhist calendar, celebrating Buddha's birth, his enlightenment, and his passing away day. It's a massive celebration going on. And this year's this event, organized by the government of China, is celebrated there. Prime Minister or President Xi Jinping, he also sponsored that celebration. I don't remember exactly how many monks and delegates attended. Initially, I was also planning to attend that event, but due to other responsibilities, I didn't go. Not only in China, in Thailand also, they are celebrating from yesterday, a big celebration going on with the support from the UN, in the UN building, celebrating that event. Meanwhile, we also have been celebrating this Vesak from very early this month, starting from the Interfaith Mindful Day, and then consecration of the building, and then children's retreat and skill show, and this will be another day, the day retreat. So we'll be inviting members to come and join from 9 o'clock onwards, just to meditate and do some reflections. Couple of days already I have been reading and explaining about the life of the Buddha, and this morning I told until the Buddha left the palace and became the royal ascetic. So after he became an ascetic, he went on traveling to different parts of the countries, begging food, sleeping under the trees, and then later on went on to the different institutions to learn the Dhamma, as he was the seeker of the truth. He was traveling in different places. So after the Prince Siddhartha, he became the royal ascetic, or became a homeless. He remained in different places. So mainly went on to the mango grove called the Anupiya Ambavan in a district of Anupiya Nikama in the Malla for 7 days. Then he continued to travel to the city of Rajagaha, which was curiosity. He wanted to know his background, so he sent a messenger that follow him and try to find out that whether he is a human or a celestial being. Strictly instructed, saying that if he disappears after the alms collecting food, then he is a celestial being, but if he remains eating, then he is a human. And it happened that this messenger followed and found out that he is sitting under the tree and eating whatever he collected. So it was informed to the king Bimbisara. One of the suttas describes that the prince himself or the Buddha himself recollect his initial stage of eating this baked food. As we know, he was the prince and living a luxurious life, a princely food being presented every day. And suddenly now he is eating in his own little bowl that everything is just messed up, different sorts of food. So he said that very first day when he saw that food, his stomach got sick. He could not eat. He was about to throw everything that's in his body. And he took control over that thought and over that sickness and told himself that, saying, if you can't eat this food, how on earth you're going to find the truth? So he forced himself to eat that food. So that's what he explained. So he was giving up his previous habits of having the luxurious food and was pushing himself to eat or relying on the food that's been offered. And he ate that food. And as it was informed to the king Bimbisara, Bimbisara was so amazed and came down to see him. And after having a discussion, he realized that this royal ascetic is on the mission to find the truth. But he had a different understanding. He thought that must be some fight in the palace, and he left the family life and become an ascetic. So he offered, saying that half of the country he was glad to share him and govern by him or govern with him. But the Siddhartha, Prince Siddhartha, or the royal ascetic, declined the King Bimbisara's invitation to govern the half of the country, and said that he was on a search for the insight, the perfect enlightenment. And despite offered such a huge wealth or a country, he rejected that, but he focused on his task to attain the liberation. So the king Bimbisara was appreciative of his endeavor to be the Buddha or to be enlightened, and bid him farewell and requested him, if he managed or if he enlightened or found the truth, then he would he please return to deliver that finding to him. So after that, then the Buddha, the prince or the ascetic, also at that time known as the Bodhisattva, now on he's known as the Bodhisattva, or the man who is on the journey to find the enlightenment, went on to study in a different institutions. Particularly two different names occur, or two different institutions been strongly mentioned in the scripture. One is Alarakarama Putta and another one is Udakararama Putta. So these two were the very famous institutions at the time. And these two institutions taught the different levels of the mental states, so-called the jhanas. The first one, Alarakarama, he not only could able to explain those stages, but also able to enter or attain those and understood ins and out. But he wasn't enlightened yet, and he knew that that's not the end. And he understood that this much he could attain, and he was satisfied with that. And in no time, according to scripture, suggests that after very short period of a time studying with this Alaraka Buddha, he was skilled in it, in those practices. And that's simply because when he was still young, he had practiced such practices under the rose apple tree and attained the absorptions. And so that's why it wasn't that difficult for the Buddha to learn from Alaraka. So in no time, he was able to kind of graduating on all the states. So with that, Alaraka, the head of the institution, invited him to be the teacher and teaching all the students. But he rejected that invitation, thinking that this is not the path to extinction or path to complete the liberation. So he went on to another institution, that institution where the Uddaka was the head of the institution. And he could explain up to the 8 stages of a concentration, so-called the samapati, or the 8 jhana, arupa jhanas. And that's the highest stage is the neva sanya na sanya yatana, which means that not a perception or non-perception state. So he could attain. And again, the Bodhisattva, the Buddha, went on to study with him, and after studying, understood that this is still not the path away from the birth, aging, sickness, and death. So according to the descriptions, it suggests that even studying with him wasn't that long, and he mastered all the skills and attained the ultimate of that knowledge that this Uddaka could explain. And after that, then he was also again invited to be the teacher of that institution. But he gave up, saying that this is not the end. I need to find my own way. So with that, he traveled alone to find the path to liberate. Now, according to the scriptures, suggests that after he left these 2 institutions, he tested, examined, and practiced all sorts of what was called that path to liberation. It became so strict that no one had done like him before. That extreme he went to pursue his achievement. He even said that he went on to too far that he could feel his backbones. When he rubs his body, all the body hair drops, and so on. So this extreme asceticism, the austerities, initially thought that that would be the path to enlightenment. So he started to undertake those practices seriously. And then he practiced them with no ground that one can say that haven't done. He started off practicing that that austerity practice, like clenching his teeth, pressed his tongue against his palate until the sweat pours down. And he experienced a great deal of suffering, like a very weak man. And his body became so weak and fragile, and yet his mind was very stable. Mind was very sharp and aware. And he realized that this is not the path to the liberation. So he attempted to practice a different path. So he slowly withheld his in-breath and out-breath, both through his nose and his mouth. A loud noise in both ears starts. So basically he stopped breathing, forcing himself not to breathe. So with that, the air was going through his nose, through his ears, not a nose, through his ears. And tremendous pain began in his head and in his stomach and his whole body. He even said that it's like the head is going to blast. That sort of a pain he experienced. But his mind wasn't trembled. His mind wasn't overwhelmed. His mind was still very stable and aware and determined. Even that practice, he realized that it's not leading towards the enlightenment. And then later on, he starved himself. He slowly reduced the amount of food each day and come to the stage that he didn't take any food. And he had no strength. And he would collapse if he walked. He could not move. In such an extreme stage, he went to practice simply to find that enlightenment and realize that it is not the path. So eventually he came to conclusion that whatever the path that they were believing, that were believed to be the path to the liberation in those days, after he experimented each and every path, realized that these are not the path to the liberation. So-called self-mortification or torturing is not the path to the enlightenment. So he discarded that method completely. And he started eating fresh food again. He compared his thought of that time. One, fresh food saturated with resin and remaining in water would never become a flame. Just like the monk and the Brahmins, those who are remain physically indulging in sensuality, with their minds still clinging to the sensual pleasures, would never reach the state of enlightenment. And the second, like a fresh wood saturated with the resin, thrown not in a water, would also never become a flame. This is just like a monk who, although having abandoned physical contact with a sensual object, their mind still longed for sensual pleasure. No matter how much effort they put forth, they would never reach the state of enlightenment. So mentally still active in the entertaining themselves. So then the last one, the Buddha said that he thought of dried wood and placed on the land, not wet, and far from the water, and it can be lighted quite easily. And just like a monk who is abandoned physical sensual contacts with their mind, and there is no desire in him, the desire for sensual pleasures. So that man could become an enlightened easier. So with that, then he began to eat food, light food, and started meditating again, observing the breath, breathing in, breathing out. So with that practice, then he gradually attained the jhanas, mental states, and eventually he managed to gain such a deep state that he could remember his past lives. So as he was in a state of a calm and a peaceful state, he channeled himself to recollect his past lives. After recollecting his past lives, then he realized that every action, it has a reaction, and every action that defines the future destiny. And having understood, he also understood that if that cause been removed, then there won't be any further reactions like that. But before he attained that state, we have to remember there was one incident that while he was practicing such austerity, there were 5 ascetics who were helping, looking after and taking care of him, hoping that he will be enlightened, and they will be the first person to hear his teachings. So there were Kondanya, Wappa, Bhadya, Mahanama, and Assaci. But when the Buddha changed his mind, give up the extreme practices and ate food, thought that he's going to give up his practice and he's not going to be the enlightened anymore. So they gave up looking after him and they just left. But the Buddha didn't give up his determination and dedication to attain the liberation. So that's how he again went back to meditate and eventually managed to reach this such a deep state that he could remember aeons of his lifetime in the past, and then ability to understand that each lifetime he was reborn actually were the consequences of our previous lives. And after understanding that, then he wanted to know what about other people, other beings. Then he realized that even other beings are also the same, not only him. Other beings are also reborning again and again and again and again, life after another, simply whatever the actions they have done. That action defines the destiny, next destiny goes on. And after that he understood the main root cause of that rebirths, of that action and rebirths, are actually the individual's desire. And if we take out that desire, then that is the end of the journey, and there will be no rebirths anymore. So that's how he was enlightened on that day. And that's the day when he was 35 years old. And that's the full moon of Vesak. So that's the second significance of the Vesak. The first significance is the day when he was born in Lumbini, current day in Nepal. And the second, this is the enlightenment, the day when he was enlightened on the Vesak day. So next, I will explain on the Parinibbana next time. Right? So this is the enlightenment part at the age of 35, and after that he taught for 45 years. So this 45 years of his teaching now we call Buddhism, and now this has been come up to us after 2 millennia later. So we have this opportunity to learn and practice this Dhamma. So I stop here. Let's do the chanting.